On the subject of the foods that you purchase, you may not understand it, but they can have a negative impact on the earth. The issue is that most people don't think that the food they eat could be impacting our planet. The planet can be harmed in more ways than one if you get certain foods. So we made our minds up to go over a few the negative effects that can be produced by buying certain foods. If your grocery stores want food, this food needs to be delivered, and that means lots of trucks burning fuel to get it there, and it could even be trucked from different parts of the country. Needless to say, there can even be food which has been imported from Canada, Mexico and other countries, and especially in the event the foods are coming from other countries, the levels of fuel needed to get them to our stores can be astronomical. First off, let me explain how the foods get to our stores if the food source is in America. When the farmers pick the foods will then have to be delivered to a distribution center. The food is then sent from here to the grocery store's warehouse, the place that the foods get inspected again and made ready to be sent out to all the stores. This of course will be needing the utilization of more fuel for the trucks delivering the food items. The food is then placed on the trucks for one more trip and the food winds up getting delivered to our local shopping stores, and as you already know, this goes back to trucks burning even more fuel. Nevertheless, the worst part is that this isn't the only way we are harming our planet. Almost every single one of these farms that grow the food are using chemical substances on the foods to help them get the best crop as they can. They can do this with chemical fertilizers along with other chemical substances that can make the food grow bigger. These chemical substances are typically sprayed on, which winds up polluting our air and our soil, and of course I always wonder what these chemical substances end up doing to our bodies, as inevitably some of these chemical substances will end up in our foods. However, it doesn't end with the different types of chemical fertilizers, as other chemicals are also sprayed on our foods. Chemical pesticides that are nothing more than a form of poison will also be applied to all of the foods, and naturally these pesticides will also be sprayed on, once again, harming our air and our soil. Needless to say, this poison that's meant to kill bugs is also on the actual food that we are going to eat, but if you take the government's word for it, there's nothing wrong with the food and it may be eaten. On a side note, why do you think that every year everyone is getting sicker and sicker with more diseases? If you choose to only buy organic food which was harvested locally, you can do your part to help with this pollution. This can allow you to in fact make a difference in the pollution from the trucking industry, because that will be just a little bit less that they have to deliver. Also, by making certain all the food you buy is organic, you will not only be helping your overall health, but you will be helping by not adding to the farmers which are making use of these chemicals. So if you care about our planet and your health, purchasing locally grown organic foods will help both. You can help your health and our planet by choosing only locally grown organic foods. When it comes to the foods that you buy, you may not realize it, but they can have a negative impact on the earth. Although most people have never considered that the food that they buy can have this effect. However, the foods we eat can be having a negative effect on our planet in more than one way. So we have decided to go over a couple of the negative impacts that can be created by buying certain foods. One thing that you may never have given much thought to is that in order to get the foods to the grocery stores, it is usually trucked in from all over the country. You should also know that we also have food imported from countries from all over the world. This will cause loads of fuels to be used before this food finally ends up in our stores. First, the food will need to go from the farms to a distribution center, and this is done by truckers burning fuel. Then once the food has passed inspection, It will be transported to the various grocery store distribution centers. Again, this is done by truckers burning more fuel. The food is then loaded on the trucks for one more trip, and the food ends up getting delivered to our local shopping stores. You have probably already guessed that more fuel is being burned once again to make this happen. While this is of course bad for the atmosphere, there is another way we are contributing to the pollution of our planet. Just about every single one of these farms that grow the food are using chemicals on the foods to help them get the best crop as they can. Some of the things that farmers use are various chemical fertilizers and also other types of chemicals that they use in order to get bigger crops. These chemicals are typically sprayed on, which ends up polluting our air and our soil. While some will argue that the foods can simply be washed off, what about the chemicals that seep into the foods? Now you also need to know that chemical fertilizers are not the only thing that gets sprayed on these foods. Most of these farms will also use chemical pesticides to kill bugs that may negatively affect their crop. Once they spray this poison, it obviously doesn't only hit the food, but it gets absorbed into the soil and spread throughout the air. Something else I should point out is that these pesticides are poisons that are sprayed right on the food we eat, and while the government says these foods that are ok to eat, the fact that they had poison sprayed on them makes me wonder. Of course, if you end up buying organically grown foods from local farmers, you will be having a positive effect on the planet. You will actually be reducing the amount of food that needs to be trucked in, and because this food that you buy, which is organic, will not have any chemical pesticides or fertilizers sprayed on them, you will actually be helping to reduce the amount of pollution even more. So for anyone who really wants to make a positive change for the planet and their health, locally grown organic food is the answer.